Well, today we have an interesting one.
Oh, yes, we do. And I'm very excited about it because I kind of play a good role in this one.
There you go. I get to brag on you. And it actually addresses a topic that pretty much no one really touches on.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so much information out there. And yet when we actually looked at the question that came in, there was a question that came in through an email, which we'll read to you in a moment. We thought about it and went, wait a second, we actually haven't covered this topic ourselves. And when we started looking around, we're like, it's not really covered in where we can find. So I'm very excited for today.
Should I go ahead and read the email?
Yes, let's start with the email. It was an inquiry that came in, someone who's a fan, who loves the show, who loves everything she's learning.
So this is what they said. I have listened now to a few talks and keep hearing how Aaron is fully present to whatever moves through Saida.
Woo!
And if needed, de-armors his cock to take all the energy and ride her wave, basically. Ain't nothing basic about that. It's a beautiful advanced move. It's like surfing a tsunami. But what if it's the other way around? When Aaron has a nightmare, she must have heard the episode where you
had a nightmare.
Where you had a nightmare.
Okay.
Or Trigger, for example, and needs something. What does or can Saida then do for him? I think this is a really amazing question because so much focus in the sexual wellness industry is on, creating safety for the woman, and there's no real focus on what's the part that is needed for a guy. And we go into safety and the difference between that and security. Don't get me started. We'll jump into it in the episode, but let me just finish off the rest of the email.
Yeah.
So, what does or can Saida do for him? And can Aaron also expand into these cosmic spaces and be open that wide by himself or by Saida? Right now, he just gets a little from what she experiences, it seems.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Assumptions.
And what does it take from him or her to get there?
Okay.
Would love to hear it.
Well, I want to jump in right away in terms of that assumption. And just I really ask you, are you only getting tidbits of pleasure and barely hanging on for dear life as the tsunami comes in? Or what's going on?
Well, this is the thing. In terms of the sensation that I can generate on my own or with you, it is astronomical. I don't know which recordings maybe have or haven't been listened to, but if anything, though, I think I'm also playing a decent amount of volume control as the mic's closer to me. Maybe.
And that might also come from the free portion where people are not
True.
actually hearing us making love, having sex, and hearing you in your expression. So for those who don't know that we have an explicit side, we do have that. We enact every episode as an audio.
So it's whatever we're talking about.
And I find Aaron far more talented in terms of erotic audio than I am because I find it a bit intimidating to have a mic in my space when I'm being sexual, but he seems to be all right with that.
Well, and also it does get quite loud though. There's been a couple of times where you look at me and you're like, oh, is it going to blow the speakers?
Yeah, exactly. I've had a few neighbors knock on the wall. So I would say from an observer point of view, you do go into very expanded, incredible ecstatic states. I know that you do that on your own. We've talked about it a lot. I witnessed it sometimes.
Sensationally, it feels as if there's a dissolving between where my body and the rest of the room or my body and your body are, and everything just starts to become more one.
The other assumption I want to clarify quickly is that Aaron isn't like this little surfer on a surfboard riding a tsunami wave. We're actually riding each other's waves and we're building together. It's very much, I think the big difference with sex is this mutual pleasure aspect. And I don't think people really believe us.
Yeah.
This is 60 episodes. We've done 60 erotic inserts and people still not believing that mutual pleasure can be had, and it absolutely can. Men can have expanded orgasms. Men can have multiple orgasms without releasing ejaculate. They can also release ejaculate, but there's the spectrum of what's possible for the male body is extraordinary. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how can a female partner support her male partner to go into those states, and also support him if he's a little contracted or has some stress, how to come back into feeling more open.
So in this free part of the episode, we're going to talk a lot about, well, why does this matter for a female partner to be able to help their male partner. Why and what exactly are the things that typically block this from happening? So I'll get to speak a little bit from my own personal past relations, and then in the explicit side of the podcast, we can talk about what then are the various things that I've noticed in relating with you that you do that actually allow this to be possible.
Well, let's jump into that. Where do you want to start in terms of
Well,
your own experience? And
I just want to name like the number one thing that I've noticed in my relationship with you is your belief and therefore support towards my excellence in all aspects of life.
I think it's beyond belief. It's I'm fully invested in your in your genius, the genius of your being. That's exciting to me. It has always been exciting to me. And what's really exciting as well is that you are in alignment with it. So it's not just me seeing your quote unquote potential. You're actually activating it and living it. So I get to see it unfold. And so my support or my efforts or the things that I do to bring more of it out, it feels yummy because it's like going towards something. Whereas in the past, I've had partners who I also saw their greatness. They were extraordinary people, but they just couldn't receive the support, couldn't receive the reflection, didn't have self-value or self-worth or self-love or whatever it was. And so it was very difficult for me to see them in pain and suffering and not succeeding in the way that I knew that they could. And so watching you succeed, watching you create every single day extraordinary things for yourself and for both of us is leaves me speechless and in awe and super inspired and always excited to then charge you up more.
Well, I want to emphasize the belief part before we get into the practicalities of it, because I don't know if those of you who are just listening for the first time or haven't heard the other episodes.
We're really happy that you're here.
Yes, we are. And I had an injury where a kidney stone had come out and gotten lodged actually between the urethra and the bladder and had cut me. And then other parts of the stone had come out, fragments, and cut me all the way up the urethral lining. And so this caused a sexual injury. And the biggest problem was that, I was having sex for as long as I liked, for hours. And then now, though, I'm limited to this kind of 20-40 minute range, but it was more also I had to regulate my pleasure to be able to then go into the longer sessions. So it's not just
a time issue. It was you weren't able to really fully enjoy the expansiveness of what you knew you could.
Well, and maybe even not just enjoy the expansiveness of it, because there was a part of that, but just also too diving into those deeper levels. I felt like that I was sort of holding back. I could fully because there's a ton of sensation. It feels really good. If anything, it became hypersensitized, but there wasn't an ability to then dive into those more intense spaces that take you into these altered states. And I'd had the perspective of what it was like before, but then when I would try and communicate to a partner or even to a doctor what was going on, they go, well, you can get erect, you can ejaculate, and you're having sex.
Last over 5 minutes.
Yeah, precisely. So therefore everything is fine and functional. You're not anywhere near premature ejaculation. So for me to hear from you that these higher states...
Normal is not optimal.
Normal is not optimal. These higher states are fully within your potential, fully within your right. Let's figure this out and get you to a place where my understanding of what my body could do, and not just do from the past, but how I could then even continue to grow it, was needing the belief of a partner who then could provide the support. I guess, yes, I could have done it on my own, but the whole point of this episode, though, is how did you assist me with that? And your belief in me was massive, where I found with other partners, when I would bring this up, either they would try and caretake things too much, or on the other side of things, they would be like, well, I'm actually a little bit intimidated by if your sexual energy is going to get even stronger, you're going to want even more sex, and then other people are going to be more attracted to you, or where's that going to leave me? I'm not going to be able to keep up with you. And so there was always that little bit of it's okay, don't worry, easing me into mediocrity. And that just wasn't acceptable for me.
No. I have to just do a side note, because I went to the hairdressers today, and I was bragging about you, and I showed a picture, and they're all oohing and awing, and all of
did you show them?
all
What
of
does that
them
have to do with my urethral sponge?
no, but it's just your magnetism, saying like your partners didn't want you to have more charisma, sexual charisma. So then one of them said like he's stunning, and then she's like, my God, you must be jealous like all the time and just like so nervous and like, you know, and I was like, no, I like that people find Aaron hot and that he's devoted to me. Like
I
that,
love that my lady's hot as well.
There's something really beautiful about celebrating your partner, seeing the world also celebrate your partner, but also not feeling threatened by that. So anyways, it was a funny moment, so we can keep going, but I just wanted to say.
I can hear the saliva coming to your mouth as you speak about me.
But why would I want a partner who's shut down or dimming his light or not, you know, finding his fullness, his full potential?
I'm getting a little bit excited about whatever, who knows what the erotic insert we're going to be doing after this as I start to hear you bragging on me.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to this episode.
So the belief was really important. So one of the key factors here in supporting a partner is really listening. If there's something incredibly dear to their heart, something that's poignant for them, whether it's a mission-based thing or a healing aspect or whatever it might be, that's for them inherently very valuable, to poo-poo it or downplay it or say you're fine as you are, why are you striving for these things, is actually not supportive. And I never once occurred to me to not be supportive of you. And that's when all the meditations would come through, or like, oh, he needs to go talk to this practitioner or see that person or do this thing over here, because I was in alignment with
you'd see
your
opportunities,
desire.
whereas before, if you're not looking for it, then you don't see the answers.
Yeah.
And to have them come from your perspective, then it adds to whatever it is that I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
So your belief isn't mean that then you then either kind of take over the desire for me.
No, that's yours.
Or just to go, it's just yours and I'm not here to support.
Yeah.
So the belief was one thing. The next part, which I think is when you're saying that you were invested, you were dedicated towards this, is then the consistency and frequency of sexual practice to actually allow the nervous system to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
And we have very specific ways that we also then started to do this.
Well, I don't know, it's a very sweet thing about you that you call every act of sex a practice.
Well,
right?
Sometimes I do. It could be a dance as well.
But it's in your vernacular. Mm-hmm. It's not been in mine. So, you know, I had to kind of like come into that space. But I understand that it's not mechanical for you. It's an opportunity to always find out what's there, how to even be even a more extraordinary lover, how to even be more attuned to yourself and to me. So that's what you mean by practice. It's not just, okay, we got to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's mechanical and it's boring.
I mean, if that's how you approach a dance practice or a workout, then you're only going to be able to do it for so long. You're not really getting to dive into the wisdom that's going to unlock for you. So when I say practice, I mean consistency and frequency and the ability to reflect upon what happens so that you can then bring about improvements in whatever direction it is that you want to do. But the key to doing this, though, is actually loving it, being in the moment, of the moment, and having the moment surround you, but then also being able to harness the wisdom that came from that and learn about one's body to either promote healing, to be able to adapt the nervous system to higher states of pleasure.
Well, that was one thing
essentially
I loved.
what we're doing here.
I really loved.
What is that?
Well, there were these forbidden moves.
Oh, okay. Well, before we get into that, before we get into the forbidden moves, because you're definitely going to want to learn what those are in the explicit side, and we'll touch on them briefly on this side here, is that now to get more specific in terms of like the ways that you helped me out. One I would say is on the relational fear, on the relational sphere, like the relational plane.
Okay.
Meaning that you look at this as, this is either, you don't look at it as, this is where I've seen it go off before, where a person's like, hey, you know what? That's for you to deal with, or you come prepackaged as you are. There's typically almost like an avoidant resistance around getting involved in it. It's like, I don't want to even talk about it. I don't know what's going on. Then the other part is that there's almost this like kind of like over anxious part of like, oh, okay, now I'm going to like mother you, or else I'm going to be the one trying to like regulate everything and like pushing the other person. And with you, you were there to support, but also just allow me to own it as myself. So it was much more this feeling of team. So there's the relational aspect, there's a communication aspect, and there's a sexual aspect. On the communication aspect, typically some people are just like, they don't want to talk about sex before, they don't want to talk about it after, and they sure don't want to like talk about what's going on in the moment. Sometimes talking also isn't just a verbal thing, it's speaking between the bodies. But there's so little communication and interaction that then it's hard for the nervous systems to begin to attune and start to then adapt and cause growth.
It is my favorite topic. Most of my family and friends get irritated. They're like, there's something else to life than sex. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's something else to life than politics. So,
well, and then the third one, though, is then the sexual side.
Yes.
And yes, you always speak about sex, but even when we first started, the level that I was like asking you, like, did you feel this? What was happening here when I did that? What did you do here when I was feeling this? You were like, who talks about these things?
I thought you were really weird. Like, that's so weird.
But what did it do for you, though, over time?
Well, over time, it made me weird. So.
It made you weird. Over time, you also said that you developed more interoceptive awareness.
Yes, and also an appreciation of, it's kind of fun to journey back into an experience and hear it from your perspective, and then try and find words for my experience. It's not always possible, but I do my best.
A lot of times we just get turned on and then go back to having sex, and it gives us more material to talk about again.
But the main thing is that we were getting at with the practice side is you had a partner who was willing to not only talk about it, but actually partake in it and have it be something where it wasn't just a routine, but there was a lot of discovery.
Well, and that's why I mentioned it sort of in those three sort of planes. If you look at it on the level of the relationship, this creates the security for a guy to actually come out and be like, hey, I would like your help to grow this part of me. Because a lot of times a partner is going to look at the guy and just be like, you know what? You kind of come pre-packaged. You're either a good lover or you're not a good lover. Or you learn that stuff on your own, or maybe you learn a little bit about me, but actually being able to up one's system and start to develop a more robust sexuality isn't really within the ideation of most people. You think like, oh, okay, well, they can kind of memorize my body or learn certain techniques, but to really like build stamina, to build sexual energy, to harness more pleasure both in the partner as well as in yourself, these are skill sets that most people never really come into awareness around. And so to have that security, and this isn't safety, because safety would be you avoiding the forbidden moves, not doing the things that, you know, would make a guy ejaculate, but instead going, hey, let's actually start to lean into those to develop the ability to like feel that pleasure and at the same time stay in the sexual experience as opposed to going over the edge.
It's the reason I mentioned them earlier on, just simply for the fact that you were like, well, I said, no one ever can last through these moves. And then you were like, we'll still see about that. And then I am very sensitive. I've learned, because I had many opportunities to, but I learned how to read a lover's body very, very well. And I can feel when they're heading towards, say, an ejaculatory response. And I like sex to last a long time. So I learned all kinds of different ways to move, to pause, to accentuate and heighten things, to slow things down, purely because of that attunement. And so I had learned, okay, well, if someone needs a little support in this part of the lovemaking, I'm not going to do those particular moves at that point because that's going to be too challenging. But you were like, oh no, I want you to throw those at me randomly in every which way you can, because that's my practice. Which was really fun for me, because I'm like, really? I'm allowed to do this at any time? That's completely new experience for me.
So with that ability, so that's dealing more with the sexual abilities that I was speaking about, which will go into the specifics and the explicit side, but just an understanding that as a woman, just to answer the questions on this free side of membership, is starting to learn how to work with your pelvic floor, how to have more interoceptive awareness to know where the person is inside your body. And when you do these different ways of moving your hips, different ways of breathing, different ways of using your voice, different ways of activating your pelvic floor, then what is the effect that it's going to have, not just in your own body and not just in your partner's body, but just as this mutual unit of pleasure together. The other piece that I wanted to mention was the part on intimacy, specifically around communication. You've told me so many stories where you would be speaking with guys and they would tell you that one guy was telling you the story of having a micro penis and also that they lasted just for seconds.
Yeah.
But from them telling you that, you didn't just go, I'm not interested in you. Now, granted, the person did say that they were exquisite with their tongue, which you're like, well, we'll try that out. And but then as opposed to just going, thank you, and leaving, you're like, hey, actually, let me give you a gift as well. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because you then were able to mount this guy, and then he had, for the first time, sex for several hours, hour and a half. So, I mean, that went from, I think maybe he said like, was it 30 seconds that he would last to now an hour and a half. That's a huge amount of time. And he was rather blown away. So when he told you that information, you could have just written him off.
Yes.
Or you could have just gone, I want to have sex. I'm just going to jump on him, go for your pleasure. He explodes and then it's done. But instead you did something different.
Yes, and that's when I realized practicing with the jade egg properly is you actually... an awakened vagina is such a powerful gift to a lover. There's a consciousness there, there's an awareness there, and there's a whole, the entire system comes very alive and very attuned and responsive. And so that was the gift I could see. Wow, like an awakened vagina has a power to heal, a profound power to heal, because for that particular person, his course of life really changed.
Yes. Well, I mean, I can imagine that his sense of confidence is going to drastically shift from, hey, this is just the way I am, this is helpless, I can't actually speak about this to anybody, to I've spoken about this, I've had an amazing experience, I can probably recreate this, and then start to grow. It's huge. And we've seen this with clients over and over again. So one of the programs that definitely check out is YAFAP, because this is a program that a guy is designed to be able to do on their own, but they can completely do it with a partner, and the partner is going to be able to use all the 7 different tools taught 3 different ways over 21 days to start to develop more awareness of the body, more ability to feel throughout a sexual experience. And the thing that's different around this is, as opposed to a guy having to shut off his feelings, he's actually going to be feeling more of himself, feeling more of the partner. They feel each other more. That creates a tremendous amount of intimacy and connection between the two of them, which then from there allows for the nervous system to be able to adapt to higher states of pleasure without either ejaculating or losing the ability to ejaculate. Because a lot of times guys also will go into delayed ejaculation where they're like, now I can't come. And so their only option is to like try and bang really hard, and they're just not feeling so much. So essentially you start to feel more pleasure, and you start to boost the amount of pleasure that you can hold in your system and share with a partner.
Yes. I want to go back because we're going to switch over shortly. And this is really like, what are the skills that women need to support a male partner? So while we're still in this part of the podcast, if we could go through those quickly.
Okay. Well, so we identified...
The first one was like connecting with and believing in a person's greatness and potential and desire, whatever that
and then showing up with a certain amount of consistency, as well as frequency sexually. Because if, you go for weeks without sex and then all of a sudden you jump into a sexual experience, a lot of times everything gets so hot and fiery that the guy's just walking around with this loaded gun. He hasn't had his nervous system be able to adapt with more and more cum inside his body, essentially, which builds up that sexual tension. But at the same time, having the ability to move that pleasure frequently is simply going to help you. I mean, like, how much gains do you expect to have if you work out once every 2 weeks versus having consistency as well as frequency? So that's the first part there. Once you've done that, then the ability to...
And it doesn't mean to make your vagina available 24/7, because that's not what every person wants to do, but to definitely engage sexually. So what I mean, I love to touch you with my hands. I love to engage with my mouth. And sometimes it's not for very long, but it's a lot of different moments throughout the day, and they can be random.
Yep.
And then there is, of course, the penetrative sexual part. But I just wanted to say that.
But you could also use your mouth or you use your hand. But the main thing, though, is that there's consistency and frequency of giving the other person an erection and interacting with them.
And enjoying that erection
level.
and celebrating it, because I know for some, sometimes the visual of that can be either intimidating or feel like an obligation. And so one of the gifts that we can give is, I always feel incredibly flattered that you get aroused around me, that there's an erection. I'm like, oh my gosh, you still think I'm hot and you still want to connect with me.
So what you're touching on, I would say, is somewhere between the communication and the relationship, like how you're being a team, as also then being able to talk about a sexual experience. And that piece is a certain amount of emotional maturation, especially around sexuality. The ability to go, hey, I'm here to help. This is also your thing. We can approach this as a team. I'm also going to engage in this not as a chore, but something that we can explore, have fun, be curious with. And I mean, what we've seen couples when they go through the AFAB, it actually creates a tremendous amount of
play and playfulness.
Yeah, because then she's like, oh, I get to play with you. And we get to like play with then delaying the ejaculation or bringing you into the higher states of pleasure. Or if you're a person struggling with delayed ejaculation, bringing you to the ability that you can choose to ejaculate when you want to. It becomes this team thing as opposed to, oh, okay, this is just for them. Because now all of a sudden, what was it like for you to be a partner in this emotionally with me, as opposed to me just like, I don't want to talk to you about it, I'm going to handle it. This is for me to deal with.
It's always a joy to explore and be part of. I mean, it feels yummy to be included in a very deep and personal journey.
Yeah.
And then the last piece I want to say before we switch over to the explicit side.
I'm going to say what the last piece
okay.
is.
But I do want to bring this up, is that there needs to be a degree of, so part of, I think you mentioned it a little earlier, but emotional maturation. So if Aaron's in a bad mood, or he has had a nightmare, and because they do happen, and you can feel really sad from it, or like it really can take you sometimes a few days to process. What are the elements that you appreciate from me around supporting your heart and your emotional side? Because men have very profound emotional experiences, but in our society, it's not really talked about, it's not really endorsed, let's say. So for me, this is a very important part of sexual empowerment, is the emotional, I guess in our schema, it would be to be able to be responsible with the truth that's being shared.
Yeah, I'm able to share my truth with you. You're able then to respond in a way that doesn't either look down on me, or also too doesn't like hold me up into this ideal. So that's where I talk about the emotional maturation that lies between communication and, a person's attachment styles, you could even say, or shared values, is that can you speak about this with a person and then either not look down on them because now they're not the ideal, or just go or ignore them, which is no, everything's perfect, honey, you're so amazing, like everything, like you don't have anything to work on. And so that's like there's this idealized image that either the person doesn't want to admit because they're afraid of hurting the guy's feelings, or they don't even want to admit it to themselves because they have them as Superman, as opposed to then realizing, well, no, here's the humanity of them. I mean, what's the point in going, oh, baby, I know you can bench 300 pounds, but, well, help them actually work out and build up to it, because eventually they might be able to. But if that's the case right in that moment, then they might not be there. So you need to be able to assess accurately where the person's at, and also not fall into this place of disrespect. And I think you hold a very wonderful balance there for me.
Well, I want to give a simple solution so that you have something to take away from this part of the conversation. And I think what infuses everything that we've covered so far is that I genuinely see you as a powerful person. And when
That's the belief right there.
when we do that for each other, when we see each other as powerful, there's no limits. There's really no limits. If we see each other as powerful, then I don't hold back my truth. If we see each other as powerful, then I don't hold back my admiration or my support or my enthusiasm or whatever it might be. It's exciting. But the moment I see you as a victim, that you can't handle something, that's where we get a lot of problems.
Yep.
So I just wanted to say that before we switched over. Yeah.
Well, before we do, there's still the last point
Okay.
though. And this is in between the sexual skills as well as then the communication. Because this talks about sexual maturation or developing one, I think you speak about it as like one's erotic intelligence.
Yes.
So, I mean, erotic intelligence almost could be both the emotional maturation as well as the sexual maturation, because I think it's referring to the whole being of the person. But by sexual maturation, I mean actually developing the skill sets of working with your pelvic floor in very specific ways, so that way you can bring the body into these more predominantly sympathetic arousal states where it's like, whoa, we're heading towards ejaculation, peak orgasms, versus then also being able to downregulate into this more relaxed arousal states, predominantly parasympathetic states that take each partner into like this almost trance-like one body singularity state, you know, where there's no longer like a dualistic state between your body and my body. We're just like one. And your ability to go up and down and regulate that with your own embodied skills, using your pelvic floor, knowing how to breathe, move your hips in a way that then becomes natural, gives you the ability to really tap into my nervous system, become more attuned to it, because so many times in the past, I've been with partners where they just want to run off and desperately get their orgasm because they're afraid that if they don't get it, you know, at the right moment, the race and chase, or before the guy does, then the whole experience might end. And then, of course, like over time, they start going, oh, wait, this isn't a sexual experience, which is like that. There's plenty of time. Then the woman starts to relax, starts to learn her own body, doesn't start to get upset at the male partner if he were to ejaculate or if he didn't ejaculate, because instead you're just simply following pleasure. And I mean, tell a little bit about that skill set as a woman.
The one for...
Yeah, around like developing your pelvic floor and also attuning to a man's pleasure.
It does take practice. So to become a good lover to someone, you need to do your own work by yourself. And so many women have this aversion to doing their own real solo practice. I'm not talking about taking a vibrator and buzzing one off. I'm talking about real practice that develops the pelvic skills, that develops your energetics, that develops your arousal, your desire. It takes real investment in yourself. And sometimes it's like, but this is related, this is something I do with a person. I don't do this on my own. You must do it on your own. It's the only way to develop the skill.
And this is something that when you've taught self-pleasuring and exploration in this sense, to name your top teacher out there more likely that you've seen on Instagram, and when you've advised them, that's the part that they've been extremely resistant around.
Yes. So people want a quick fix, they want a quick pill, they want a quick experience, and typically females want something done to them. They don't really understand that there is an inherent deep gift hidden in our pelvis.
I mean, if you're a goddess, then you're able to create, not just receive.
Yes, but that inherent deep gift in the pelvis is something that has to come from solo practice.
Yes.
And then you have the confidence. So many women won't even put their own finger inside their own body. And there's no way to be an exceptional lover if you don't understand the inner workings of your body. And the only way to do that is through your touch.
From new students and clients to those that are even experienced teachers, when they start doing this level of practice, they typically will tap into their emotional immaturity in a relationship where they're like, I just want the perfect guy to come along and do this for me. I want Prince Charming to come out there. So there's a relationship between the sexual maturation as well as the emotional maturation, which is then going to allow you to show up on the relational level, the communication level, and the sexual level in a whole other way that is then going to support the man, to lift him up as the king, as he also lifts you up as the queen, and the two of you really then can match. And it becomes this beautiful dance because it's just like you're both climbing into higher and higher states of emotional and relational and sexual bliss.
And the good news is you can start at any time of life. I've taught people of all ages, all backgrounds. There's no right time. If you feel inclined to start and really claim your sexual sovereignty and your erotic intelligence, now's the time. There's no better time. And honestly, this is a blooming experience. It's ever evolving. There's not a place where you finally get to. So that's one of the things I really love about our relation is we're not trying to like arrive somewhere and then wipe our hands clean of it and move on to something else. We're understanding that the act of really profound sexual connection is an evolutionary one. It's an emergent one, and it's really it's responsive to the environment. It's responsive to the felt state of each individual. It's responsive to the genius that wants to emerge. So it's pretty awesome.
And it's something that resolves a big issue that so many of you were talking to us about, which is that sex, the relationship, intimacy becomes a routine. It becomes like kind of the same thing over and over again. You're like kind of wishing, oh, well, if we could just go back to those first days and recreate that, and you kind of set up the environment, but then the bodies aren't responding. When you start to explore each other and develop one another in this fashion, forget about the routine. You literally have that process that's inside you, and it's ever evolving, like you said, to then have new experiences as well as deepen older experiences. And you really just find out that you can rediscover yourself and your partner every single day, while at the same time having the comfort of truly building a history of knowledge between each other.
I think we should switch.
Let's jump on over.
So if you want to hear more and you didn't know that there was more, embodiedlove.love is the podcast URL, and embodiedloveuniversity.com is where we have a lot of cool teaching videos, foundational videos that you need to check out. So embodiedlove.love and embodiedloveuniversity.com. That's where you can join us and pop into any level of membership that suits you, and we'd love to have you on the inside.
And also check out the program YAHFAP, YEAHFAP.com, because that is literally the program that evolved from this work that we did together as we adapted my nervous system to higher states of pleasure.
To join us for the complete and explicit version of this podcast, just simply upgrade your membership and you'll get instant access.